Aggression and violence as mind possession. Here's an article in the Daily Sun of a man who was sitting in a little hair salon here in South Africa and started preaching to the other people in the salon about their money and their finances. He started telling them that they were always broke, had no cars, and lived in ugly houses because they didn't know how to budget. One customer then got very angry and grabbed this man by the neck, dragged him outside the hair salon, and threw him down on the road, where he proceeded to attempt to strangle him. And the photo that is here in the newspaper actually shows this man lying on the floor with the other guy sitting on top of him, strangling him. Now, this kind of mind possession occurs based on people who are now projecting and transferring their blame and anger onto other people because of existing patterns of anger, frustration, resentment, feelings of being powerless. I mean, what you'll find here is that this guy was maybe irritating the customers of the salon by telling them about how they're not spending their money properly, they're not budgeting properly. Maybe the people did get a bit irritated and offended by what he was saying, but to no extent does that actually, under normal circumstances, warrant somebody jumping up, grabbing the person by the neck, and proceeding to attempt to strangle the person. You know, this is an example of people, especially in South Africa, who are feeling very powerless and done in by the government, by the socio-economic situation, by the government pretending and claiming they're going to deliver on their promises, which is to make life better for all South Africans, and this never happens. A lot of people are being retrenched from their jobs because obviously within the corporate environment there is now a tough competition, and people are trying to downscale, and therefore the corporate bodies are letting people go and using the excuse of cutbacks and economic crisis, and the market is doing this and the international market is doing that, and due to the oil prices and petrol prices we have to cut back and and end up retrenching the workers without actual consideration for the person, for the fact that that person relies on that salary to feed him, herself, and their family. The corporate person who has a comfortable life, they don't, because they're not understanding the position of the person, they're not willing to cut back on their own riches. There's no equality existing within people where we take into consideration, I would rather, as a business owner, be able to pay my staff than just cut back and retrench people just so I can remain rich. That kind of equality and responsibility with regards to taking care of all the people, loving thy neighbor, considering what it is like for other people who've been working for you and now being retrenched, that type of consideration is not in play. And it's happening all over the world, and this is causing a lot of tension, a lot of violence, a lot of stress-related crimes happening in South Africa, and this is one such case. I mean, a guy was mouthing off a bit, and another man snapped and completely possessed himself with anger and rage, which probably was not due to just this one person telling him, some sarcastic comments about his budget and why he lives in an ugly house. This is people are walking around stressed and angry and wanting to blame somebody. Now, the people who should be held responsible, adding to this, who would be, for example, not the guy who was for a moment making sarcastic comments about your ugly shoes or your fact that you don't drive a car, but actually, who did you entrust to give yourself and your fellow people in the country a better life? You entrusted your government, and you keep voting for the same government who keep lying year after year. So again, This is an example of misplaced anger in the form of mind possession, where the being will snap and take it out on the next person who cannot stand up for themselves. You know, the picture clearly dictates that the other guy, the guy who is strangling the man, is much stronger and much bigger. But he feels powerless in the face of the government, for example. And instead of people taking a stand against the governments by not allowing the lies, not believing what we're being fed, and actually just not voting for the same government. I mean, I'm sure that if an effective political party came along that takes into consideration not repeating the mistakes of the past and not allowing greed and mismanagement of the funds to come into play, and to actually say, look, this is what we will implement in the next couple of years, this is what is practical, this is what we will accept and allow as the government, and to actually live up to those expectations. And I mean, the government must be held accountable by the people. If they say they are going to spend so many billions on effective hospitalization, building of healthcare facilities, of making medicine available to the sick, and they don't do that, they must be held accountable. People must not build up a point of rage and snap and take it out on their fellow man. We must start holding the governments accountable.